Building a legacy starts with the bold decision to take a leap of faith. Behind every empire lies a foundation of grit, willpower, and the courage to take big risks. Welcome to Entrepreneurship Unlocked, where world shakers in the business world gather to share their stories. We're diving deep into the mindset of the modern entrepreneur to show you exactly what it takes to become truly unlocked. Join us in the pursuit of excellence with your host, Seth Rudin. This is Entrepreneurship Unlocked.
Hey there, this is Seth Rudin with Entrepreneurship Unlocked. Thank you for joining another podcast. We're going to talk about why capital is important in business acquisitions. I am joined by the man who is all things SBA lending, Mr. Paul Long. He is your trusted SBA lender for the Pacific Northwest. Paul, would you like to introduce yourself a little bit deeper?
Well, hello. My name is Paul Long, and I manage and lead a great team of SBA lenders here at a pretty large credit union here in the Pacific Northwest, and absolutely love talking about SBA lending and how we can help get good people into good businesses, especially that are sold by IBA.
Thank you so much. With your 15 years of experience, you're highly regarded by my boss, Greg Rutkowski and IBA.
Thank you.
So
thank you.
Whenever we have a question on the SBA, we always go to you first.
Yep, I'm like dial a nerd.
Yes. Maybe that's interesting. SBA dial a nerd.
Yep.
Let's dive into why working capital is so important.
Very important.
From working with you and working with the buyers and sellers of companies, right? Small business of all sizes, working capital really is the fuel that allows the owner of that business to run it, like sort of like gas in your gas tank. Without it, your car is going to flutter and then stall, and you're going to have employees walk off, vendors not supply you, and all sorts of issues are going to arise. So the proper planning and preparation for it obviously is key. It's something that everybody needs, and during the purchase of a business, or whether it's running, down the road, the owner of the business must understand that. And the simplest way for them to think about it, as you and I have talked about, are monthly payments, right? Less their monthly expenses, plus whatever inventory they have on hand if they carry inventory in that business model. Paul, what are your thoughts? Why it's so important and dear to your heart?
Well, lenders really care about cash flow stability. Cash flow is king, you will hear a lender say. It's really important that our business borrower has stable cash flow, good liquidity, and good risk mitigation, especially when it's coming to, does he buy $3 million worth of inventory? Well, maybe that's appropriate for his size, but does it depend? It also, really looks at the operational efficiency of the organization as well. How a company manages its receivables, its turn days, inventory, payables. All of that plays such a big part into working capital. And so when looking at working capital, there's what we call the cash conversion cycle. And that's where you have cash that moves to purchases, which moves to inventory, which moves to sales, which moves into receivables, and it's this circle, and that's what we call the cash cycle. And it really protects against surprises. If sales slow down, maybe you have a customer that delays in payments. Maybe you have equipment failure. Any of those can really cripple a business when you have thin liquidity or thin working capital. So really having that working capital acts as a buffer in order to keep your business really stable during those shocks, because they're going to happen. It's just a matter of when.
I think it comes down to understanding the levers, right, that go into it. And if you keep those levers going, you can have a highly profitable business that's consistent. And then if you have a downturn, right, or you have somebody get sick on collecting your AR, or tariffs and other expenses come up, that might take it out of balance, right? So the formula that I have, that gets a little bit deeper, right, than just, monthly payments incoming, less your monthly expenses, would be take your days inventory outstanding, which is your inventory plus cost divided by 365 days. Add that to your days sales outstanding by calculating your average AR. So AR balance divided by 365, right? And then take that minus your days payable outstanding. And if it's a positive number, it's actually not good. You want a negative number. As long as you understand even if it's positive, as long as it stays in the same trend and stays stable, that's fine. You just have to plan for a reserve for it. But if it's negative, that would be a case where you have cash coming in more cash incoming than you have going outstanding on number of days. So I have a customer, it's a large customer, and they get paid 3 days faster than what they average paying out their team. Very good. Most companies are the reverse. They receive money 15 days, say, later than when they actually have to pay their payroll, their monthly rent, etc. So if you can find a company that's got negative cash conversion cycle, you should really want to buy that business.
Well, and that's the whole point of people wanting to buy businesses, is for the cash cycle, the cash flow, the amount. I always look at it as an ATM machine. How much is that ATM machine pumping out cash to the owner, or to the business? That's all very important.
If you get a good, consistent company producing and they got positive cash, they don't have a lot of debt, then it's all going to work out in the end. Congratulate 3 to 4 years, as long as you don't do anything different to the business. The economy stays stable, you should have a predictable business. And that's what I think most banks look at.
100%. Well, and that's a perfect segue into this next part here, Seth, because, when it comes to working capital, you have to support the growth of your company without really over leveraging, right? So, businesses with adequate working capital, can they take on new contracts, hire staff, buy inventory without needing to take on more debt? Because a lender is always going to want to make sure, okay, how much are you providing? How much are we providing? And that's how it's determined. If the lender's throwing in all the working capital and the business isn't, that's not real fair, right? And we're going to look at it differently. So, leveraging is okay. Leveraging is good. That's how I make money and feed my family, right? I love leverage. However, you really have to use it correctly. And especially like a line of credit, a line of credit should look like a heartbeat monitor, as I tell people. Up, down is your balance. Up, down, up, down. If you see a straight line, you're dead in life and in cash flow.
100%. We want to avoid surprises, right? Nobody likes surprises, not at home, not at work, and certainly not at the bank.
True.
Right? And we'd certainly want to see leverage, not overreaching. Do you want to touch on that?
Well, definitely. And again, it kind of goes back to that whole leverage of going back and forth. You really have to make sure that your business is providing working capital through your accounts payable, accounts receivable, and how you're managing those two play a really big role, big time.
Agreed. Let's dive into a few more things. So where do we see it in the client's financials is really important to understand, and where do you get it? In terms of where it shows up on the financials, if I'm going to buy a business, I want to look at 3 things. I want to look at the balance sheet. The first thing I'm going to look at is their current assets, less any personal assets that's on there. So assets includes inventory, it's cash, accounts receivable. And then I'm going to subtract out their current liabilities. So current liabilities be accounts payable, or trades payable, or supplies. Those are pretty synonymous. It could be some taxes that they have to pay for payroll taxes. Yeah. And it's going to include accounts payable. There could be some short-term loans, lines of credit, credit cards. Those are your typical ones. If it has a shareholder loan or a personal credit card, those should be excluded. And then you subtract those 2 numbers, and that gets your working capital. That's the textbook definition of it. Paul and I, as you know, are not CPAs. Right. So if you worked with a CPA firm, and people do this, especially for larger deal transactions, they would reproduce the P&L and they would come up with the true cash flow. And that would be more complicated, more specific to that business type, the dynamics of that industry, and the supply agreements that they have on hand. And that's really how you get to a precise number and the best way to do that. And if you understand that cash conversion cycle that I went over earlier with Paul, that'll also help out.
Yep.
So there are sometimes Paul and I will be talking to a buyer, and mostly Paul probably faces this, but buyers often don't understand, what are they getting when they're buying the company? For IBA, we're very clear what's excluded and what's included. So it's clear that, this is a cash-free, debt-free transaction. Or for our larger deals, typically 5 million above for us, we sometimes, not always, will include a working capital allocation as part of the purchase price. You're going to pay for it, right?
Of
course. Do you want us to assume what it is, or do you want to come up with your own and negotiate it? That's up to each individual buyer.
That's true.
But they should understand, what's excluded and included from the buy. What I see most of the times is they get a loan or they pay cash and they go to their bank like Paul. And Paul loves to give out lines of credit because he gets to get more assets, loans under contract, and gets more interest for his company. And that's why he's there. That's why his team is there. They're great at it. So that's how you would mitigate that and how you would manage to get there. What are your thoughts, Paul? Anything to add?
No, you did a phenomenal job on that. One of the things that I see is kind of some common pitfalls and misconceptions when it comes to working capital, especially with, buyers assuming that the loan covers everything. So there's plenty of working capital because the lender wouldn't have given the loan. And for most cases, that we look at working capital. You better do that, or you're going to be sitting back in the, how are you how is your business able to breathe for that first 30, 60 days, especially when you purchase a business? That's going to be really important. And if the lender isn't doing working capital analysis, you're going to show back up on their doorstep. It also, a lot of businesses that I've run into also underestimate the seasonal swings that happen. So let's use an example of, say, like a landscape company, right? Summers, they are taking cash and throwing it in the air. Woohoo! Winter, not so much. They're literally watching everything freeze, right? And that's why you see a lot of landscaping companies working on and doing snow removal, because at least it helps out their cash flow, right? Then you look at like IT firms, medical, dental, some utilities where there are no seasonality. I mean, everyone needs utilities, everyone needs medical, dental. And what are you going to say to your IT firm? Sorry, I got a virus, but I got to wait later. Doesn't work that way, right? So their cash flow is pretty stable on that. So that what else do you think here, Seth, when it comes to working capital?
I think based on the industry they're in, who it's their customer mix, if they're dealing with retail and it's credit card and cash, that's different than commercial having contracts, and then aerospace and defense that they're dependent on government contracts getting paid sometimes shorter and oftentimes more longer, right? And so they need obviously more gas in the gas tank during those situations, just understanding that. And then is there a first article, approval that might impede a larger project getting completed? Are their contracts fixed or not fixed? We look at, the seasonality, if you have a retail store and they're on an island that is vacation, then obviously there's going to be some slow months. Can they make it through the slow months and save on the big months when everybody's visiting that tourist spot, right? So really important just to understand the dynamics of each of those. Working capital is not extra. Paul made it very clear, I think, that every business faces it. It's just how are you going to source it? Are you going to get a line of credit? Are you able to negotiate it? And if you're listening to this call and you're not selling your business and you're just a mainstay business, it's just understanding your fundamentals of your business, right? Knowing your cash conversion cycle. So let's talk about what advice, Paul. Now you're sitting in front of a buyer. What are you going to give them?
There's lots of advice I got on this. So number one is don't assume the business will fund itself day one. Okay. A good banker should anticipate, is there cash in the business? Is there cash that the buyer's going to contribute? Is there a line of credit from us? What is the thing? What is it that they're going to make sure that they have enough working capital to be able to really get the business moving after they purchase? Another one is make sure you are not just receiving, but understanding who your clients are, and especially your accounts receivable and accounts payable aging. So let's give an example here. If I saw an accounts receivable statement and all what I saw was Walmart on there, I would run to the hills, because Walmart takes forever to pay their clients, okay? It takes 120 to 180 days for them to do that. Well, what, you're not going to pay your employees for 120 to 180 days? You're not going to pay your vendors? You're not going to do anything? No. That's, again, where that working capital comes in. I'll
slightly disagree with Mr. Paul.
Ooh, I love it. Good disagreement. Bring it.
I do agree it's not good to get paid 120, 180 days. But if you have a consistent business and sales, and whether it's
True.
Walmart or any other slow paying customer, you just need to plan for it. And if you plan for it accordingly and you expect it, you can overcome it.
That's a good point.
It's when they're doing something and they stop and they start and you're not prepared, that's when you will fail. But if you understand that Walmart is consistent demand in your example, and they're giving you lots of revenue, but you have to plan for 180 days, then it might be okay. Once you catch up to that cycle, then you're okay, because the money will just generate. You can take your dividends and you can be a happy business owner.
That's a good point, Seth. Good point. Because definitely, you're right. Absolutely making sure you understand the risks that are a part of that. That's really where, again, banks and credit unions don't like risk, right?
That's why we do these podcasts to work things
That's
out.
Right. Absolutely. And I love it when we disagree. I freaking love it. Now let's look at accounts payable. Okay. So that's, again, what you owe your vendors. Now, when you get a bill in the mail, do you immediately stop what you're doing, grab your checkbook and write them a check and make sure you get it out in the mail the same day? You probably don't. Because if you did, well, you must have a ton of cash sitting in your account, but that really kills your working capital. Because if you're paying so quickly your bills, but you only have Walmart that pays you 180 days, you're just borrowing in order to make sure that that's the case. So, the difference between, balance sheets can also be a way of determining your working capital. If you have more payables than receivables, you're already kind of hurting for working capital. That's another quick way to look. There's many different ways to do this, as Seth and I have been.
The thing to add here, is Paul is really advocating be prudent with your financials, right? If you get a bill and it's not due for 15 or 30 days, hold it, put it in an overnight deposit, make some interest.
Absolutely.
Right? And then if you are in a situation where you're paying people, out later and you got to borrow in order to get it, then obviously the longer you hold it, the better. So those are all good advice. Just know that there's always overnight deposits and stuff like that.
That's true. What about for sellers, Seth?
Well, sellers want their business to succeed, right?
Of course.
I've never met an owner who said, just give me the highest price. I don't care if they fail, right? Everybody cares about their legacy.
Yep.
Everybody will realize that if it fails in the first 3 months, it's the seller is going to get blamed for it. The executive, ownership of the buyer is important. There are cases where the buyer can really mess up in the first 90 days as well, but more often than not, it's because it wasn't planned for. So they want to see them successful. Naturally, there's some tight price things, and banks need to give a line of credit. And they also understand for the right price that working capital needs to be included.
Very good point.
And then my advice for sellers is keep your books clean, so that it's easy and predictable and consistent. Banks like to see something that's easy to understand so they can calculate and rely on the calculations that they're going to use to approve a buyer and the deal, right? If the deal can't be funded and the buyers in the mix don't have cash and it's only those that can borrow the money, then we certainly need the bank to say yes, because they hold the rules. The person who holds the cash, they hold the rules. Maintain consistent working capital, right? So keep your AR collected and current. Don't have long agings. Don't have write-offs on bad debt. Keep your bad debt expense close to zero. There are some industries like retail and others that you're going to have a natural bad debt expense. Just keep it within the market baseline. Yep. And be transparent. As long as you're transparent in life, you can get through almost anything.
Amen by that statement.
So working capital is important. It's vital to your business. It's the gas in your gas tank. We've taught you how to calculate it. Any last closing comments, Mr. Paul?
Nope, we did a great job on this. And of course, if there's anything that we can do, we're the people to come and talk to.
Paul is your SBA expert. Yep. His credentials will be at the end of the podcast when we're done. And I am Seth Rudin. I am your business broker, works at IBA and that covers the Northwest. And I get the pleasure of holding these podcasts and I love it. Please continue to follow us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, and Amazon. Have an awesome afternoon or morning or day.
See you later.